Hey guys, welcome to Compile Link Run, and I'm really excited today for the episode that I've got for you because I think I finally cracked the case to how to build Irrlicht with CMake. Definitely want to use this Irrlicht CMake project by Andre Netzband, and the only thing is that it's for a different version of Irrlicht than the one I have. I think it must be for like version 1.8 of Irrlicht, and I'm not sure what version I've got. It's just whatever I had in my game engine and my game engine project, and so it's I think it's 1.9 or something close to that. I might even grab the latest. Maybe I should take a minute to explain. So I had this game engine project that I worked on for years and years and years. Started out with a friend of mine, and then even after we dissolved the partnership we were doing to make a game with it, I still continued to work on it. But eventually hit a roadblock to where the design of it was just, it had gone in a certain direction, and I'd gone so far in a certain direction with it relying on an interpreter that it was integrated with and garbage collection. And I just realized it would never be fast enough to really do what I wanted. But I had so much invested in this particular direction that I'd gone with it that I just kind of was stuck. And I gave it up for a few years, started doing other hobbies and stuff. Never quite completely lost interest in it, but I stopped hacking on it for a while. And recently, last couple of years, I've decided to get back into it and get it working. But I ran up against the problem of there still wasn't I didn't have a good cross-platform IDE, and I felt like I really needed that because the experience that I'd had at the beginning of the project trying to develop it with Visual Studio or CodeBlocks on Windows and CodeBlocks or NetBeans on Linux, and I didn't have a Mac yet, but then later, if I was going to use Xcode, when you have all these different IDs and different project files, it's just a complete mess trying to get a project to consistently build on all these different platforms, because you add a file to one and then you have to remember to open up every other operating system and add the file there in those projects, and you build setting or code would build on one OS and not on the other, and it was just too big of a hassle. So I had standardized on code blocks for my cross-platform development, but I had a lot of problems with code blocks, particularly on Mac, and then more recently I've had a lot of problems with code blocks on Linux, actually, because the default version that's packaged in Ubuntu seems to be kind of out of date, and I just felt like it's too primitive. There's IDs have moved on, and I haven't really seen a lot of new stuff. I'm sure they're working on new stuff, but it hasn't reached general release as far as I know. So I am looking at Sea Lion as a possible replacement. Now, the good and bad thing about Sea Lion is they chose to use CMake for their build system instead of rolling their own or whatever. I kind of wish they had chosen the CodeBlocks build system, but whatever. Because I had no qualms with the CodeBlocks build system, just with their graphical interface. But anyway, so the using CMake is a decision that made sense for JetBrains who make Sea Lion, but I'm not a big fan of CMake. I feel like takes the worst of declarative programming and imperative programming, and somehow manages to combine the worst qualities of both. Of all build systems, it's probably not the worst I've ever seen, but it's not my favorite, and it just seems like frustrating that I have to learn yet another language in order to do my build system. But nice thing is when CMake works, it surprisingly does work pretty good. And so for instance, the Bullet project, I should also stop and explain this game engine that I wrote. The idea, and this is why I renamed it to Meta Engine when I continued development on it. This game engine that I wrote was integrated. I didn't try to write my own 3D library or my own physics library. The idea was that I would integrate a 3D library, integrate a physics library. Excuse me. when I started this, it was so long ago. Unity wasn't free yet. For is Unity free at all? Anyway, but all of the different engines that are available now, if they were available, they had onerous license agreements for indie studios, and so that was why I went ahead and so my friend Ben had been working with Irrlicht before this, and he kind of got me turned on to Irrlicht. But the problem is Irrlicht doesn't have integrated physics, or not really anything to speak of. And so I integrated the Bullet physics engine with Irrlicht to give the physics. And the Bullet engine was really easy to build because it already had a CMake project for it. Let's see if I have a folder here. So if I do this and I say open, new window, in C-Line with Bullet, it actually just detected everything, and I'm not going to go ahead and run the build now in case it takes a while, but it actually all just built. Another nice thing about that is, let's see, maybe I have the wrong folder open or something. Well, it says, oh, okay, it's just worrying about a subdirectory. Okay. Well, anyway, so the so Bullet, it just built. But another thing that's nice about a physics engine is theoretically, if it doesn't use any kind of hardware acceleration, it can just take data as input, do some calculations, and produce data or state changes as output. So it doesn't necessarily need to interact with any third-party DLLs. And in my build of Bullet, I've disabled any dependencies on OpenCL or anything like that. So it just can be self-contained, and I wish it were possible to build a 3D library that way, but obviously you can't. So Irrlicht has all these dependencies on either OpenGL or DirectX and some other things, and getting that right is a little bit difficult. I might have to disable DirectX for the moment in this one. And then the other thing was that I'm pretty confident I can get this to build today because I actually got it to build on OS 10, which is amazing because I'm not an OS 10 and Mac OS apps expert, and I had to do a lot of hacks to get that to work. I might have to undo some of those hacks now, but I was just amazed that I got that to build yesterday. It didn't run correctly, but I think I know why. It's saying it's got a null pointer on the bundle name. But one of the things that I need to undo is the authors of Irrlicht used kind of a clever or too clever hack to combine Objective-C++ code and regular C++ in some of their files. There's a few files that have a CPP extension, but they have Objective-C++ code that only works on a Mac that is commented out with, or if-diffed out on other platforms and is included on Mac. The problem is that still doesn't compile correctly. It's just a CPP file. They must be using some kind of custom build command in their official sources to build those files as Objective-C++. And so what I did was I just created another copy of the file and gave it the correct extension, which is .mm for the for what it is, for what it's doing on OS 10. But to do that, in order to do that, I had to take out the CPP file, and I want the CPP file back in, but I don't want it in the basically depending on the OS. So I need to use an if statement like this to conditionally compile those things. So what I need to do, first I need to know what my constants are going to be. So I'm going to say if apple or if win32. So I'm going to have an if apple and an else, I guess. And then I'm going to look at my OS, and we have Mac OS settings. And so this again, so these CMake files, I felt that it might be better rather than starting from scratch to find somebody's project who had done this partially. And so I found this particular one, Andre Netzeband had written a set of CMake files for a different version of Irrlicht that I adapted to work with the version I've got. And mainly it came down to commenting out files that I didn't have and adding ones that it needed. But now what I need to do is I need to look in here, and actually I think I'm going to use looking at the file names to find the ones that have similar names. So let's see. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is just simply sort by name. And then I'm going to find the ones that have a .mm file. Let's see. Okay, so these are the 3 that have M, or the 4 that have MM. Your device OS 10, Irrlicht MM, and CNS. I don't think I have that one in my my Mac OS build. That might, oh no, I do have it there. Okay, so those 4 are listed. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to set these side by side. I'm going to move this back. No, that's not what I wanted to do. Okay. What I'm trying to do is to get to where I can see both of these. Now I'm going to go COS operator, and I have, well, I already know that these are the ones that are going to have a CPP version, I think, but one of these might not have a CPP version, so that's what I'm really after. So I'm going to look at COS operator. Okay, that has a CPP version. See your device OS 10. That does not. Okay, so I can ignore that one. CNSOGL manager. Okay. That one does not. And then out of Irrlicht, of course. That one, Irrlicht.p. Yeah. So it looks like there's only 2 files. That makes things easier. And so what I'm going to do is, I guess, let's grab these, and I'm going to go to I'm going to put it in here. So the way the CMake files work is that it's basically, they're like scripts, and you can essentially sort of execute other scripts and subdirectories in a way. Now what I'm going to, okay, no, that's not really what I want to do. Okay. I guess I'll go and, what I'm looking for is where this file here is called from. I thought it was called from there, but it's not. So maybe it's in the root CMake lists. And let's see. Still not seeing it. Still not seeing it. Okay. I've forgotten where this is called from. I guess another thing that I can do is I can search, find all files that have Mac OS X in them. Include. There it is. What? Is that not the one that I was just looking at? Well, that's not it. That's very frustrating. Okay. Include Mac OS X. I find the search in CLion kind of strange. It will, oh, I've got regex checked, that would be why. Include, okay. CMake lists example build. So I want this one. And also, what I'm doing is I'm trying to build the dependencies of my main game engine. I've still got a lot of source files to translate from script over to C++ because I removed an interpreter from it. And so I have to take the scripts the game configuration scripts that I had, not CMake, but game configuration scripts I had in CMake, or in Meta Engine, and convert them to C++. But in the meantime, I'm trying to get all the libraries that Meta Engine depends on to also build so that it'll be ready when that's done. And I'll put a link in the video description to the GitHub page where you can download this. I had Irrlicht in a submodule, but I wasted so many hours with fighting with the submodules and gaining it. Submodules with Git, you can get in this detached head state to where it's like this weird mode that the repository can be in where none of the commands do exactly what you want because you're not really pointing at what you think you are. And it's just such a missed feature, and it's so easy to get into a detached head state with submodules by accident. I thought that it'd been a long time since that happened to me. But it's like every time that I try to do anything with Git submodules, I just get burned so badly that I don't try again for a couple of years, and then I think, oh, well, maybe it's fixed, maybe it works right, and then I get burned again. So I just kind of rage quit submodules and stuck the whole thing in as a folder in my main thing. So if you want to get just Irrlicht and just build that with use it CLine with your own stuff, you're welcome to it, but you'll have to grab the whole repository because I'm not messing with submodules anymore. Submodules can be okay if you never are making changes to the libraries you're depending on, but usually if you're going to have to make changes to the libraries and you want them synchronized with the versions of things in your parent repository, submodules don't actually help you synchronize those. They actually make it easy to desync by accident. So. Okay, so this is where it includes the settings, and then it does this here. So the issue that I have is that I've named this in here. I guess what I'll do is I'll go and I'll put the files in. I was hoping to do an if-else, but I think what might be a better choice instead would be to do this. I'm going to copy these into here and add them like this. I guess that works. What I was looking for was if there was a good place to put an if statement that would say if OS 10 do, or if Apple do those files, if OS, if otherwise do this. But the CMake files are not really structured that way, and there's nothing wrong with how they're structured. They just weren't structured the way that I was thinking they would be, and so I'm just going to do it like this. So what this is doing is this is replacing the these files, is putting these back to where they're supposed to be. They originally were in the all source files list, but I had to take them out so that I could make .mm specific versions for Mac OS. Okay, so that's all good there. Now so another thing with CMake is because it's looks like a declarative language, but it's really imperative, and you can run scripts and all that other stuff. It doesn't actually have the ability to auto-remove the configuration files, which, I mean, it kind of makes sense that that's the case, but it's also inconvenient. And so you can do a clean of your object files, but if you're messing with your configuration and you want to be sure that if you're messing with your CMake configuration, you want to be sure that you regenerate everything properly. The only sure way to do that is to actually delete that build folder. And then now if I were to go here, right, and say like run build or whatever, actually, well, it already knows that I need to reload the project. So what's happening here is it's running the CMake scripts, and then generating some kind of fancy make file or something. And then it's that fancy make file that actually is what builds the source code. Now, I'm not sure what's up with this DirectX 9 thing. I think in the last video I might have just stuck a find DirectX thing in here. And I don't know if it actually was working. Find package DirectX. I don't know if that's how this works. I don't know if I have to do something else like an include or something with this. Let's see if I had to include the font config. Find package font config. Yes, but did you include it? Okay. So this thing's split into two things here. There's a utility for finding the library, and then there's here where the project is set up to depend on the library. And I'm thinking that maybe I need to include this thing, because this doesn't come from Andre Netspann's thing. This has, I think I jacked this one from Ogre. And if need be, I can build without DirectX. I can use OpenGL or even just a software video. But let's see if we can let's see if we can get this thing to work first. Now this is the one, this one, I don't know where this came from. This came with the Irrlicht CMake, but I don't know where he got it. Someone, Laurent Montel. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to see if he's doing an include anywhere of this. So I'm going to say include find font. Well, it does do include find package macros. Where does he do that? Oh, wait. Maybe this was with the Irrlicht. See, no, this came from Ogre too. I don't know if I grabbed this or if that was already in there. Maybe he used the same one that I did in the other video. I can't remember. That would only be natural if there's only one find DirectX thing. It might have gotten used and reused in different projects. Okay, so this does include that. Let's see if there's find package macros. Package begin. Okay. So this might actually be already integrated with the rest of the CMake stuff. Maybe this was already there. I thought that I'd put that in there, because if it wasn't there, that's what I would have done anyway. Okay, so we don't really know why it's not finding DirectX. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just temporarily disable that, because half a loaf is better than none, and I would be happy with building this with OpenGL support without DirectX right now. So I'm going to go here in Options. And so all these subfolders, these were created by Andre Netspand for organizing the CMake files. These aren't the only way that you can do this, and it's actually not the way that CLion by default does it. CLion by default just chucks everything in one giant CMake list file, and it's very messy. But I mean, I don't know, who am I to judge, because I don't really know CMake, but this is a lot more structured. So anyway, what he's done is he's made this options folders and organized all these different options. And let's see here, if Win32 set here, like, okay. So I'm going to change this to off. Hopefully I can just reload without having to delete that CMake build folder. Okay, 9. Well, I might have to delete it, because see, it says DirectX support on. I like that he printed out these things. That is in this file, and it's actually just, this is not DirectX. I mean, it's not CLion or CMake printing these. These are actually imperative code in this file that's saying print this, print that, and it's been very handy for getting this to work, because I could see when I made a change here and it didn't get reflected here, that it had something stale going on in there. So I'm going to go here and I'm just going to delete this folder again. My recycle bin is going to get so huge. Okay, and Irrlicht CMake project. Well, that looked a lot better than last time. Okay, DirectX 9 support off. OpenGL true. I think that I don't see an OpenGL support option, so maybe it always has OpenGL support. That's nice. Okay, OpenGL correctly found. Awesome. We might be in business. Okay, that all looks good. Now let's do a build. Now here's another weird thing about CLion or CMake. I'm not sure which one's responsible for this, but instead of building the library, the Irrlicht libraries needed by all these Irrlicht example executables, instead of those pausing and waiting for this to build first, instead what happens is that it says error, don't know how to make irrlicht.lib at the same time as it's building irrlicht.lib. It just isn't finished yet. And that seems to be an epic fail. The number one thing that a build system or make file is supposed to do is order the build dependencies so that things, pause, if something is missing, wait until that thing is built and then build the second thing. And I don't know if that has something to do with the way that he structured, the way that Andre structured these CMake files, or if it's a quirk of CMake or a quirk of CLion or what, but it's very strange, and it requires building more than once. And I just realized another thing. This might possibly be building with Visual Studio, or Visual C++, which is fine for now, but I'm definitely going to need to change it to build with GCC or Clang. Let's see. What does this say? What compiler it's using? This definitely looks like MSV C++ settings. So this will work for now, but I'm definitely going to need to change this to build with Clang and GCC even on Windows. Although actually, I guess I could compile my meta engine game engine with Visual Studio instead, or using CLion but with the Visual Studio backend, Visual C++. Okay. So now if I go back here and I build this again, I believe it'll just actually detect Irrlicht and build it again. Oh, so no, still do not know how to make Irrlicht lib. Okay, so what I need to do is go up here and I'm going to do this. I'm going to say, I'm just going to tell it I want to build, or that I want to run the first example, hello world. And nope, still don't know how to build Irrlicht lib. Okay, that's not what happened on OS 10. I got the first thing where it said this, but then it did eventually build it. So let's see if we can. And another thing also, in a previous video I said that you couldn't have multiple projects in CLion in one window, or that I didn't know how to do that. And this Irrlicht CMake project from Andre kind of belies that, because it theoretically does do that. But I'm not sure if that's because those are separate targets. Maybe that has something to do with the strange thing of it not knowing how to build, not knowing that it needs to build the Irrlicht library first. Maybe those are only top level targets, and okay, so build Irrlicht. Continue anyway. Sure. I think it's complaining that it doesn't know how to start a dynamic library or static library or something. Lots of warnings. It's got more warnings on Visual Studio than I had with Clang. Of course, Visual Studio sometimes has a lot of warnings that aren't very helpful, so we'll see. Another thing I want to do is, oh, you know what? That might be a problem. So on Clang, I set it to build as C++17. And surprisingly, I was actually eventually able to get it to build that way, even though it was not written for that. But that might be a problem here, because I don't know how... Oh, okay, so it's not set there anyway. What I did was I went in here and I added this code to the file to build it as C++17, because I intend to have all of my game engine eventually building with C++17 settings. And see, this is another thing that why I don't necessarily like having CMake be the back end for the build system for an IDE. And that's that in any other IDE, where you set the language standard would be in some particular menu in the IDE, and that's where it is. And if you, at worst, you'd have to do it project by project by project, but at least you would know where it was. But with CMake, because it is imperative files that set up all these settings, it could be organized anywhere. This thing that adds this to the flags could be absolutely anywhere. So like when I want to add, if I want to build bullet as C++17, because I just realized I actually hadn't been, why is it, I don't want to mess with that, okay. So I just realized I don't know what C++ version this was building as. If I want to change that to C++17, I don't know how many places I'm going to have to add that or change that. Theoretically, any subdirectory of this could have a CMake list that changes those settings. It probably won't, especially since Bullet is written by people who know what they're doing. But it could. And there's no way to know ahead of time where that setting's going to be. I guess I could just do a text search for the whole for this whole project. So let's go back to Irrlicht and see what it's doing. So it actually built. Okay, it was all warnings. That's cool. And see here, let's see. Some of the warnings I'm expecting will be about overloads. No, I don't know. Okay, so that all worked. Now, we can come in here and we can say, let's debug hello world. Or maybe even build all. Maybe that was my problem. Maybe I just didn't do build all. Well, let's do hello world first. This will be a fast way to see if it worked. Oh no. It's rebuilding because I changed the settings. And now it's going to rebuild. Should be pretty quick now though. Oh, I guess it's already doing build all. That's interesting. Even though I said cancel, it still did build all. Okay. Debugging is not yet supported with Visual Studio. Alright, well let's see what it built. Maybe I can just run it. Actually, here, let's just do this. Let's run it from here. Run Hello World. Well, that did nothing. Okay. Ah, code execution cannot proceed because Irrlicht DLL is not found. Okay, so I got a couple options here. I can change it to do a static link, or I could add the Irrlicht DLL over here, or I could start it from a directory where it's gonna know where it's at. What do I want to do here? Let me see how many examples there are. So there's 26 examples. 26 times 5 megabytes is a lot. So it'd be like a gigabyte of code that would generate, I think. Maybe? Let's do the math. I want to see how much disk space it's going to use. Not that I really care that much about disk space, but I am kind of running low on space on this SSD and trying to decide whether I want to use the Irrlicht DLL or statically link it. I thought I was going to statically link it before, when I started this endeavor, but Irrlicht works so well with dynamic linking that, aside from not being able to find the DLL, that it kind of makes sense to use it this way. It's, after all, it's designed to work that way. Okay, 5 megabytes times 26. Okay, so it's not a gigabyte, it's about 100 megabytes. So if I statically linked it, it'd be more or less that much. Maybe a little bit less because it would save some code. So I could do that. Let's change it to a static link. That would be a good instructive exercise anyway. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go to these options and option static lib. I'm going to say option static library on. Save it. I don't know if that's going to work. I might have to delete the CMake build. Okay, it's running all that. See whether it has the proper flags. So I'll know if it's got the proper flags when it, or I'll know if it's working if I look here and if it says build static library, it says off. So I've got to go back in here and delete everything in this file, like CMake build debug folder. Reload the project, and hopefully it will now say that it has the static library reset. On. Alright, see that change? That's because I deleted that folder. Okay, that's done. Now let's go to here and let's build all. So I'm going to say, I'm going to do this to force it to build. And then for the executable, let's run around on this Quake 3 map. I'll need to figure out how they're doing this with the multiple project targets, but ultimately I might just keep it like this to where you build these dependencies once in another window, and then in the actual meta engine code itself, hopefully I won't have to build these too much once won't have to mess with these too much once I have them building on an operating system. The nice thing about CMake is that if you do get your CMake scripts correct, they generally tend to just work. You don't have to go through all this every time you bring it up on another computer. Of course, auto tools also work just as well for me, so I'm kind of a curmudgeon still about CMake. I really don't see what it gives you over auto tools, and I wasn't really very happy with auto tools either. I just wish that I could use the C-Line IDE on the code blocks project backend. If I could do that, I would just do everything like that. In fact, actually, if I could do that, there wouldn't be any reason to make these videos because I'd already have this all working. But of course, that's only because I spent years of blood, sweat, and tears figuring out how to get the code blocks projects to work cross-platform, dealing with problems like, for instance, that if you the order you list the static libraries is whether the build succeeds or not, if you have interdependencies, with GCC depends on what order you list your static libraries, and you have to list the most derived things first, or else it doesn't remember it, from one library to the next. It doesn't keep anything that you didn't already reference, so you have to order it in a certain way. And you don't have to do that with Visual Studio. And you don't find that problem out until you are using Visual Studio and GCC alternately, and your project gets to a certain size and you start to have this problem. And I think the version of code blocks that I had at the time didn't even actually track the order all that well. Okay, fatal error, but that doesn't look good. Why did I get a fatal error? Linking one resolved external symbol. What did not imp create device? Well, that's not cool. And here it's using CMake. Okay, that's interesting. I sure hope that if I build this with GCC that it will that it's going to be able to debug it, because if I can't debug this on Windows, that kind of defeats the purpose of having CLine as a cross-platform IDE. Hopefully they get their debugging with Visual Studio working in this soon too. Okay, so we're trying to link the Hello World example, and it did not find create device. Imp create device. Oh, that's not cool. It's still trying to link the this is the imp underscore imp whatever. This is a stub function for the DLL, and so it should be trying to get that directly, but it's not. What must be going on is it must be compiling DLL extern, even though it's a static library. That's what I'm guessing, or else it's got just some stale code somewhere, stale build output. Maybe. We can only hope. Let's try it. Just like watching progress bars is 90% of a system administrator's life, watching compiler output or watching a compiler slowly churn through files is 90% of a programmer's life. And so, let's see. So what I just did there is I'm hoping that that was just a fluke, that it was still referencing that underscore imp function there. I'm hoping that it just somehow had a stale object file, which I don't think it did, because I'm pretty sure I had deleted the CMake build folder in between changing that setting. But just in case that's what it was, I'm going to go ahead and see if that's what the problem was. Because if it had a if it referenced a stale object file, what would have happened is that the object file could have been built for the dynamic library settings, which will reference the stub function that's part of the interface of the DLL, and on the other hand, the static library would want to be linked directly to the function. And so I'm hoping that that's just the case, and that rebuilding that object file with updated settings is all that was really needed. I should probably make this window smaller so I don't encode so much video information. This is probably needlessly encoding video state updates that don't really mean anything to you, scrolling by too fast to really read. The important thing is that it's getting through it. Since this is a recording and not also a live stream, I guess I could edit this out, but editing videos just adds a huge amount of work compared to just uploading the video file directly. So this is using CMake, which is the I think the Microsoft Make program. I hope that this can work with a different build system as well on Windows. Okay, we're probably still getting the same error. Where's the error? Yeah, create device. So if I search for this, I'm not going to find it anywhere in my source code. What I have to search for is create device itself. Whoops, left an E out. There we go. And let's mask it to .h files. Or .h files. And we want just the plain create device, so I'm gonna put this in here. Okay. Extern C. This is the issue here. So this Irrlicht API thing, if I search for this, and I just happen to know this because I've messed with Irrlicht before in years past, and when we find the definition of this, you'll see what I'm talking about. Okay, so this thing gets defined as DLL import or DLL export if we're not building a static library. Okay, if def error. What we want is actually for this to get defined as nothing. But where else is that defined? Here we go. Okay, otherwise it gets defined there. So the issue is this thing here, this should be set. And I'm thinking that it's not. So I'm gonna go in here, and I'm gonna search for everywhere where that is set. And I'm actually referring to the CMake files. -d or static lib. Okay, so this should be set. Let's look at our CMake output. If I look at my compiler flags here, I'm not seeing that macro defined. These /d things define macros. And even though this is configured for, oh, where's that? Okay. Static lib is on, but this doesn't say define your static lib. Copies plain text. Okay. So I can manually force it in there. That might be what I do just for a moment to see if that works. Let's go to build stack library, build shared library. This probably should add that here. Let's close all these. Let's get our optional, okay. This is the one I'm looking at here, and then compiler settings, okay. Oh, I can't just stick that in here because we might have two different compilers. So it needs to be here. And I don't see it added here at all. What I might need to do, I hate to do this, but I might have to add this here, because what I'm worried about now is if this is set up before this is run. Now, I don't really know for sure. I've been ragging on CMake and calling it imperative code. I don't know for sure if it's fully imperative or if it has some better kind of organization as to what order these things happen in. But the problem that I've got here is that if this option is not, if this gets set after this, then testing it here won't work. But maybe if let's look at the CMake list. What order is it doing things? Compiler-like settings first, yeah, and then option static lib. So I need to go here, and I'm gonna grab this. Okay, so we're gonna set that there, and I'm gonna. So this has the option. It says it's building static library, but it doesn't actually change the build any. So I'm gonna make it change the build. And I'm gonna say flags. Release. That's another issue. Is it gonna do it twice? Well, I guess it's okay. I'm wondering if this CMake CXX flags will work the same in either build. Maybe I don't need to do the release build there. Maybe I only need this. And maybe C flags too. I'm gonna do, whoops, add /d. And here, that's the syntax, okay. And then I'm going to get the Irrlicht static lib. I got to search for it again, I closed it. Here, static lib. Well, I've already got it up here, okay. Option static lib, define this macro. Find that macro there. But then I want to say if it is a GCC compiler, then I want to do a different syntax. And I'm going to just look that up because I can't remember what the syntax is. Searching for the define on the command line. Okay, interesting. Looks like, okay, GCC is the same, but it uses a dash. Okay. So I'm just going to go up here and copy this to the else. This might also be why I couldn't get the static library to work on Mac. If this works here, I might actually change my OS X build to do a static lib by default as well, because I was having to mess with the R path and it wasn't finding the dylib and all that jazz. OS X is kind of weird. They actually bake the absolute path to the build location of the dynamic library into the executable as you're building it, and then you have to come in after the fact and actually modify the change the bytes of the executable on the disk to hack in a more general path or a different install path or something. It's a very weird way to do it. I guess it kind of makes sense because it allows you to run a program in the debugger and have it find your debug file, or your development files that you built where you built them. But it's kind of hokey because for a lot of reasons. One is that when I run something, even though, yeah, it's okay if it just finds something. Yeah, I do want it to use it where I built it, but sometimes I want to know when I run it on my development machine, I'd like to know that running on my development machine means that it's going to run somewhere else, and that kind of breaks the whole purpose of that because you can't get an accurate picture of what it's going to do when it's installed because it's hard-coded to your development things. You'd really like those to be relocatable. And then the other thing is that because it's editing a file that's already compiled, you are limited to a path length of however much space is allocated based on your development path. So if your development paths are not longer, or at least as long as your install paths, then you just simply don't have space for longer strings. It's just a very strange way to do things. Anyway, enough bashing on different operating systems. So okay, so all I should have to do to make this work for GCC or Clang, I guess, is just change that slash to a dash. Okay, since I've made some structural changes to the CMake files, just to make sure, as soon as this thing gets done here, I'm going to rebuild this as oh, well, maybe I don't need to, because it looks like I was going to delete the build directory, but it looks like it picked up my change, because it's got this define, so it's on the compiler flags. It's not on the release ones. Or maybe it doesn't matter, maybe these get combined. Those might be debug specific, release specific, and base. So this might be okay. Use define ear static lib. Oh, wait a minute. That is printed here. Where did that come from? Maker flags, okay. So, according to this, that define was already built in. But let's see if this fixed it. Let's do a clean. Let's do another build off and see what we get. This is a fairly fast machine that I've got, but I'm not sure if CMake is running this multi-threaded, so that might be part of the problem. I've got the machine I'm running it on is a 8-core, 16-thread AMD machine, but I've also got a dual socket, 28-core, 54-thread Intel Xeon machine for compiling. I've got that that I'll use in another episode probably. I need to get a KVM or something and I haven't got it set up to where I can actually easily use it. I was going to use it as a server, but never had time to finish setting it up. I'll probably use that one in the episode if I do an episode covering the MAME multi-arcade machine emulator, because that one takes hours to build on a regular run-of-the-mill desktop, and I don't want the video to just be hours of building, and I don't want to sit here for hours waiting for something to build, so I may run it on that. It'd be interesting to see just how fast the machine can build it, although without a point of reference you wouldn't be able to really know. But kind of for a comparison, my complete game engine, when it was working and when I had all the script bindings for the scripting language, and it took about 2 minutes to build on my laptop and takes literally 2 seconds to build on this Xeon machine. It compiles 52 files at a time, or 54 files at a time, so it churns through it pretty fast. This one, I can't tell from this output if it's multi-threading this or not. There's so many warnings being generated that it's kind of hard to tell if it's actually doing a multi-threaded build. One of the interesting things about Irrlicht is that it includes a lot of loaders for different file formats. They didn't want you to have to run a offline conversion process to convert all your game assets into a specific format. Instead, they took a design philosophy, kind of like how browsers work, how they can load multiple different image formats. Irrlicht's kind of the same way, that it can handle many different image formats, TIFF or JPEG or bitmap, etc. And it even handles multiple mesh formats as well. It's a pretty old code base by standards of I mean, I don't know if I want to call it old, but it's certainly been around since. Boy, I'm not sure how long it has been around. Maybe we'll look it up. It's been around since I started doing 3D game programming. Well, not really, because I started on DOS, but it's been around since I started doing DirectX or OpenGL game programming. Okay, looks like the build finished. Could not open afxresource.h for the meshviewer.rc. But did it at least build example 1? I don't really care about meshviewer. So let's see what we've got. Let's run Hello World again. And it did nothing. Let's try running the Quake 3 map. Oh, right. Okay, so I know what happened. The Hello World, I think, is hard-coded just to use Direct 3D, and I didn't build with Direct 3D support, so it just simply exits. Here I've got this little output here. It's saying, it's asking me to select the driver. And so I'm going to try, let's go for Brook. Let's see if OpenGL works and if we have actual 3D. If that doesn't work, we can try one of the software renderers. Okay, loaded that. Well, we have a window flashing, a notification. Oh, and it has captured my mouse cursor. Okay, let's see if I can get out of it. It's captured my mouse cursor. I can't see it, but I can't get my mouse cursor back. Well, okay. It started Task Manager, so I can hopefully use it to get my mouse back. Okay. Now, let's bring, maybe we can pull this back over here. Nope. That did not work. Okay, I have to kill it. Well, that's unfortunate. So I don't get to even see if it was working. So it opened the window underneath everything else, so I can't tell if it was working or not. Let's do it in task. Okay. Let's try this again, but with a software renderer. Certainly seemed like most of it was working. So there's two software renderers. There's the basic one, but there's also this one called Burning's Video, which performs pretty well, depending on, or considering, oh no, I just accidentally typed in the thing. Okay. Hopefully this doesn't also capture the mouse. Oh, it did. Well, I do have a window, but you can't see it because it's on the other screen. Here it is. You might be able to see it now. Let's see. Okay, now you can see it. And it's a blank screen. Oh, mesh could not be opened. Probably the wrong starting folder. Yeah, it's trying to do a relative folder and it's not finding it. Let's okay, I'm trying to get a hold of this. There we go. If we go here directly into the examples folder and run it like this, then we'll be able to load the mesh. Okay, now I've got this up here. Hopefully, when I run the driver, it will open it here too. So let's do OpenGL. Oh, still did not find the mesh. Why not? /media Oh, okay. I see what happened. So what happened here is that the CMake build output goes into a different place than what the Irrlicht stuff normally goes to, or at least the way C-Line has it configured. And so the example, and we can open the example code up here. It's right here. It's trying to do, trying to load this get example media path, which is, let me find where that is. Go to definition, no, navigate to definition, there we go. We have to find /media. So this /media folder exists in the source code, but doesn't get copied over to the examples folder. Back here, media, that's up there. So to make the examples work, what I need to do is normally I think normally they would build in place, and then the output would be right here, and that would be so let's say we're here. How many dots are in there? Okay, 2. So it's expecting it to be here, here, media. But instead, it's putting the build output here, which is another level. So if we just simply change this to this, then it should work. However, I will have to rebuild everything. But that's okay, because I'm just going to change it to build just this one, or I'll just try running it. Okay, so let's do OpenGL. Okay, we've got our window, which I can't see because I guess Open Broadcaster covers it up. And I can't get my mouse back. Now I've got my mouse back. Let me see if I can get Open Broadcast Studio off. What's going on is the example is opening on the wrong monitor, and then since Open Broadcast Studio is also running, I also can't even see the example when it runs, because Open Broadcast Studio is also writing to the screen. However, I'm able to get this, but I can't move since it's captured my mouse and my keyboard, I can't get the window over here. Let me see if I can, maybe there's a shortcut key to move a window to the other side. Let's see. Shortcut key to move window. Alt space, well, it should have done that. To other monitor. Windows shift left right. Prevent windows from being automatically arranged. Move to the edge of the screen. Filter keys. I don't know. Okay, let's see if this. So what did they say here? They said, so he thought it was Windows shift left or right. Let's test that theory. Oh, all right. Let's see if that works on this. So I'm gonna go run. No, whoa, wrong window. Okay. Run Quake 3 map. Gonna do OpenGL. How does that happen? You would think that it would capture the input here. Okay, OpenGL. Now, Windows Shift Left. Oh, that did not help. Okay, there we go. All right. Now I just hope that you guys can see this. Yeah, you can. All right. So, here it is. We just built Irrlicht with CMake using CMake files meant for a different version of Irrlicht. And we got it set up with the Quake 3 map, with it finding the Quake 3 map files where they're supposed to be. So what this has done is it's loaded textures and a 3D mesh file from that media folder that I just fixed the path to. I might have to make that more easily configurable with the CMake or something, but it'll work for now. And yeah, there you have it. I think that is that's a wrap, I think. We have CMake and Irrlicht and Sea Lion working on Windows. It would be nice to have it building with GCC or Clang so that I can debug it with GDB. But, you know, I'll take it. With it just running, being able to build, it's going to be probably a few months before I have enough of my meta engine, game engine files that are on top of there that I wrote using Irrlicht on top of Irrlicht, before I have enough of those converted over and building to really be wanting to build the whole project and run it anyway. So it's just really nice to know that I'm going to have this dependency working. And it also would be nice to get DirectX working. So there's certainly things to do for future videos for this. But I think this is pretty cool that we just got this working. Yeah. Well, thanks for watching. Once again, this was Compile Link Run, and see you next week. I make these videos every Monday night. If there's enough interest, I will, or if there's a topic that I think I'll be able to get some interest, I also may stream on Twitch. The original plan was that I was going to simultaneously stream and record, but what I found is that I only have people watching on the Twitch stream if I'm doing a topic that's fairly well known, or like a game or something, and I don't, possibly Irrlicht might qualify for that, but I'm not really sure. The last one that I had actual viewers on was the Diablo hacking project, and I kind of hit a roadblock on that because I didn't have the Storm DLL, the proper source for that, or a fixed source for that, and I think that source code exists somewhere, and if I find it, I might do one on that. But anyway, this was a pretty good exercise. I'm happy with how this turned out, and thanks for watching. Bye.